what if your hitter does both problems? Well, let's load both ways, right?
The A's are based off of math, right? And math works out over time. If I take a coin, I flip it 4 times, I can get 4 heads in a row. I am terrified of horses. When you finally have JK on, you should ask him about that because he has a great story about me being terrified of horses. I think the most important strength conditioning exercise for baseball and softball hitters are the squat and the deadlift.
Hey guys, I'm Dowdy with Baseball Rebellion. I'm here with Chaz this week. He's the founder and owner of Baseball Rebellion. And we've got some questions for you that we received on Facebook. We're going to be talking about Ryan Mountcastle. He trains with us. He's just starting his Major League debut. And we're going to talk to you about the A's. Do they have a shot at the title? Can they even make a deep playoff run? They tend to have issues with that. We got a recruit breakdown with Luke Lito. Chaz is going to be talking about that. And then we're just going to look at some of what's going on in Chaz's week and what he's been up to.
What's up, guys? As you said, my name is Chaz. I'm the founder of Baseball Rebellion. And I've been doing this for about 13 years. We have gone from me doing this by myself in a barn next to a horse, and I am terrified of horses. When you finally have JK on, you should ask him about that because he has a great story about me being terrified of horses. This horse tried to kill me. It was terrifying. But anyway, we had no bathroom, we had no heat, and I was doing it literally 7 days a week. Easter and Christmas I wouldn't do it, but that's how I supported my family. And my wife and I moved to Durham, and I had no job, and I decided I wanted to try to do this. And we were digging holes to go to the bathroom, and it was wild. But we did that for 6 years, and then we got a facility in Hillsboro. It's 5,400 square feet, so that was really cool. We rented that. I ended up hiring JK and Justin Orenduff. They both lived in my house. And as we continued to grow, we ended up with 5 guys by the time we left there, I think. And now we're in a 13,000 square foot facility in Durham, North Carolina, which is my hometown where I live now and where I set up home base. And we're loving every minute.
We got lots of comments on Facebook this past week from our last episode and other episodes of different content. But it's clear everybody's got an opinion, but only one question. We need more questions, guys. We want to talk to you about this stuff. We want to help y'all out. But let's talk about it. The question was, what are good strength exercises for hitters?
So I'm going to answer this 2 ways. I think the most important strength conditioning exercise for baseball and softball hitters are the squat and the deadlift. That being said, you can't just go into your garage and pick up some heavy stuff or load your back with a weight. You've got to make sure that you're being trained by a strength and conditioning professional. I do not have a CSCS. I'm not a strength coach. I should not be teaching you how to squat and deadlift. You should hire somebody who has the right certificates, who's worked with youth athletes of your age and gender before and gotten good results so you can make sure you're squatting and deadlifting properly so you're not doing something that's going to mess up your ankles if you have bad ankle mobility, or hip hinging incorrectly, or your knee caving in, or your back rounding, or even with a deadlift, you're holding that weight with your hands. If you jerk at the wrong time and you don't take the slack out of that bar, you could really hurt your throwing shoulder. That could be really problematic. So make sure that you're learning the squat and the deadlift. You're grinding on how to hinge, but you're not doing it without proper and certified instruction. The second thing I'll say is if you don't have access to strength conditioning coaches that are qualified to teach you this stuff, then what I would do instead is I would get online and figure out how to rotate the best way possible. If you rotate your body properly and you learn how to open your front foot, for instance, so you have more range of motion through your hips, or if you learn how to pull your back foot forward instead of push off your back leg in order to get into rotation, or you'll run out of pelvic turn possibility, you've got to make sure that you're learning how to rotate properly so you can't just go fast with strength and power from your legs, but you're going through a full range of motion and moving as much mass as possible because that's what's going to get the most power into the baseball and softball swing.
So last week we had one of the guys that we train have his Major League debut. Chaz is going to talk about it.
So Ryan Mountcastle, I've trained since 2016. Really, really awesome kid. I've watched him become a lot more professional and really learn how to train his body and his swing in the off season to be as efficient as possible to make sure that he's ready. In 2017, he led the minors in doubles, and then last year he was International League Player of the Year, which is MVP at AAA. I'm sure, I'm speaking for myself here, that he was a little frustrated starting on the taxi squad this year because you can't really get much better than MVP at AAA. But you know what? He made his debut, and he walked twice, which is hysterical. I mean, a guy never walks, so he walks twice his Major League debut. And then last night was super cool. He hit his first, not one, but 2 big league home runs. And what's really funny is the main thing we've worked on with Ryan over the time that I've known him is pulling the ball in the air, doing damage pull side, right? So we started to see that when he was 20, 21 years old. Again, leading the league in doubles, leading the minors in doubles with 48 in one season. But now, as he's gained weight, as he's grown, and as he's gotten over 2,000 at-bats in minor leagues, we've seen his power even skyrocket even more, and some of those doubles are turning into home runs even at the big league level. So he's hit at every level. I think he's over a 290 career hitter. That is a Chaz fact. You may need to check that stat.
Yeah.
But what I want you to know is Ryan is somebody that's hit at every level, and his bat is going to be what gets him to the show and keeps him in the show. Yeah. And he's already showing now, hitting almost 400 with over 1,000 OPS, that he belongs there, and he's going to be a mainstay in their lineup for quite some time. Probably the coolest thing that happened with this entire experience of training Ryan, I've met his mother, met his dad, met his stepbrother, I met his girlfriend, all these different things. But the coolest thing that happened was when he finally got the call. Steve, his dad, took the time to reach out to me and say, hey, man, he got the call. He's going to the show. So one of the things I think people don't really realize is when you do a job with athletes like I do and like we do here at Baseball Rebellion, if you're truly involved in what they're doing, the family's going to bring you in to that inside feel, and what stinks is this COVID stuff going on. I mean, there's no opportunity for us to go see him play in his debut year and his debut games. But I can promise you this: we're all rooting for him at Baseball Rebellion, and I know that his parents and he are appreciative of the work we've done, and we're appreciative of the opportunity of working with him as well.
All right, let's talk about one of the hottest teams in baseball, the Oakland A's. Historically, they make the playoffs a lot, can't seem to make a deep run. Do they have what it takes this year, and does this shortened season help them? Chaz?
Well, here's the deal. I love the A's. One of my guys I've trained for a very long time, one of the first pros I ever had the opportunity to train, Mark Canna, starts for the A's now. He was a non-roster guy at first, and now he's a starter. So I love to see the A's do well, and I love to see Mark do well. He's leading them in hitting right now, which is super exciting. The one thing I'll say about the A's is I don't think the shortened season helps them make the playoffs or actually go further in the playoffs, and here's why. The A's are based off of math, right? And math works out over time. If I take a coin, I flip it 4 times, I can get 4 heads in a row. But if I flip it 400 times, it's going to even out a little more. The more games they play, the more the A's math helps them. The less games they play, the more of a chance it is. And I also don't think that they have the frontline starting pitching, the ace and the number 2, to really make moves in the playoffs, and that's where they've really lacked because they save money on pitching and they use all these different parts and they use all these platoon players, and then when they finally get where it's time for brass tacks, where the money is made, and they just can't find a way to find that consistent lineup and that consistent pitching to get them to the promised land, over the hump, out of the ALCS and into the World Series. It kills me to say that. I don't think they're going to be able to actually keep this going. The one thing I will say is they're 2.5 games up over the Astros, and we saw the fight that happened with the coach from the Astros run his mouth. Totally inappropriate, absolutely absurd. He should have been suspended for the rest of the season, if you ask me. And the center fielder, Laureano, is one of the most talented players on the A's roster, one of the best arms, unbelievable defender, good power. I'm telling you what, that guy was totally right in going after that guy, and I felt bad for him that he was put in that situation to get suspended.
All right, we've got our recruit breakdown of the week. We're looking at a guy named Luke Lito. He's an up-and-coming shortstop. He's got a good-looking swing. Chaz is going to break it down for you.
Yeah, I really like looking at some of these high school players across the country, and he's one of my favorites. So I'm going to take you in behind the scenes right now and show you my breakdown.
So basically, he's a shortstop. He's committed to LSU. He's a big athletic kid. A lot of people think he's got the defensive versatility to move around a little bit, but right now it looks like he's going to stay at shortstop. He's got a really good compact swing. Ball really jumps off his bat. One thing I really like about his load that you can see right here is his knee really stays in well. Okay, so he doesn't really lose that. So when he goes back, he keeps that interior pressure on his knee. Knee stays in well, as far as doesn't really get out going back this way over his ankle. Back foot stays really, really solid on the ground for quite some time, which is good. And that's what we're really looking for in the load phase. He turns his pelvis in well. The only thing I would say negative is I think he could get a little bit further out, stretch out his body a little bit more on a stride, and that front arm gets a little bit barred out at the very beginning. But for the most part, this is a good explosive athletic swing with a good decel pattern in the upper body to really transfer that whip into the barrel. So he does a great job of turning that barrel, down here and around and then up through. He does a really good job there, kind of extending upward, even maybe a little bit more than my initial arrow showed. But that's the good arc of the swing that we're looking for. Accelerate down into the zone, bottom of the barrel out between the knees, and attack up through the baseball to deliver as much power as possible. So if you can see the ball coming in right here. So here's the ball. Here's the ball. So we can see, he's doing a good job of getting uphill towards that ball, which is coming down clearly, right? And so what we're looking for is, can he get that barrel onto that line early and then up through that line for a long period of time? So he does a really, really good job of staying in the zone for all of this distance, because he's not pulling up off of that pitch plane at all. So that's what gives him that hard barrel contact, especially at PG National. He did extremely well, and that's what's going to continue to carry him through LSU or into the draft if he ends up going that route. But I do like that he does keep his back heel down for an extended period of time. His rotation pulls his back heel up, and then he recoils just a little bit through the finish, again showing a great deceleration pattern.
So as you all know, we do lots of in-person lessons here. You can see the facility behind us, and Chaz has done a lot this week. He's got some new content that's come out. I'm going to let him talk to you about it.
Well, the best lesson moment of the week was really cool. I actually had a hitter really start to understand her plane. And we use a lot of different tools to kind of teach that, right? I mean, you'll see a pool noodle behind us. You'll see heavy balls. You'll see, obviously, Rebels racks or Bat Trick Busters are products that you guys know we sell. But one of the things that we did with her was we overloaded a problem she has when she's dropping her hands. And we call it the hands-up drill. And the hands-up drill is extremely important for young hitters, especially if they're not as strong as some older hitters, okay? Now, this girl's super talented, and she hits the ball really, really hard, but she only weighs about 100 pounds. So the problem is, the faster she turns, the more the bat pulls away, pulls down from her. So we did 2 really cool drills with her that made her understand how to support the barrel, hold that back arm in, and attack up through the ball. Even though a softball, a lot of people ask me questions about the rise ball, it only goes down unless it's thrown 65 miles an hour harder. That's not my opinion, that's physics. So look it up. If you have questions about the rise ball, you're probably not seeing them unless you're playing SEC softball. Secondarily, it was so fun to watch her just understand and see her mom go, I saw it. I saw how her bat followed the ball. I saw what you're talking about. Finally, as her mom's videoing from behind. They're very detail-oriented people, so it was really cool to see that. Some content I have coming out that's really good is I have an All-American level player that I work with, and she was having some real trouble on the blast sensor with her on-plane scores. Okay, now at Baseball Rebellion, we prefer Diamond Kinetics to blast for a plethora of reasons, but her school uses blast, so that's what we use, and anything is better than nothing. So her on-plane scores weren't as high as they wanted to be. She's had trouble with this for years. So I said, what is your coach looking for you to get? She gave me a range, and I said, okay, we're going to try some things with your setup and your stance, how you're loading, and immediately we saw a massive jump in her on-plane efficiency, her on-plane score. It was super fun to see. She was so excited, not just that she got the jump, but she's like, I've been working on this with my coach for a year and a half. I get to show her that this actually works. And she texted me later, not that day, the next day, where she said she got all the way up into the 60s for her on-plane score when she was consistently in the 20s before we did this. Wow. And so it's fun to see somebody really understand exactly what we're talking about. And finally, for the drill of the week, we're going to do a really cool drill that uses the Rebels rack, but it'll be something that'll help you support the barrel and eliminate casting or dropping your hands in hitters of all ages, baseball and softball.
Awesome. We're going to show you that video right here.
So my favorite drill to avoid casting the hands or dropping the hands is this one right here. I've got Luke with me, and he's gonna put the Rebels rack on, okay? And in a normal Rebels rack position, you're gonna have your hands out, your hands open, and pull back on the rack. In this drill, we're gonna pull his hands towards the wall, which would simulate casting away. So if he did it wrong, he would unload his scap, he wouldn't hold it tight, he'd let it out, his hands would get away from him. Luke's gonna do it right. So he's gonna go ahead into his stride, and then as he goes into his turn, his heel stays nice connected, his hand turns. That's really, really good. He's not letting the band pull him away. Now, let's say you're dropping your hands. Thanks, Luke. Now, we're gonna hook this to his front foot. Look at his shoes, those are great. And we're gonna go to his top hand again, okay? Luke, big fashionista. So when he goes ahead and strides, go ahead. Now the band's pulling him down. So if your daughter or son drops their hands, go ahead and turn, then obviously they're gonna feel this for the first time. The hands are gonna drop and open up the elbow. Now they can still hold the scap and open the elbow, but that's unlikely. What's probably gonna happen is everything's gonna dump down, everything drops, the rack goes away. Now, what if your hitter does both problems? Well, let's load both ways, right? So here we go, we got two bands. Now, you may need to lighten this up a little bit. Go ahead, Luke. He's gonna set his scap, he's gonna rotate in, good heel connection, he's gonna rotate his hands. We're pulling his hand down, we're pulling his hand to the side. If your hitter, relax, if your hitter can do that, they're not gonna drop their hands when they swing, and they're gonna be blasting balls in the outfield in no time.
So that's it for our second episode of BR Weekly. Come back next week. We're gonna have Garrett Gordon. You've probably seen him in some drill videos, stuff like that. He's gonna talk to us a little bit. Make sure you're sending in your questions. You can comment on our Facebook, on our YouTube, send us a DM. I don't care, just send us questions. We want opinions and questions. So give us something, and we'll see you next week.